And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this terrific Tuesday, June 3rd. We can breathe outside. We don't have air quality problems. There's some clouds, and a little bit of light smoke aloft, but conditions much better today. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. And Bridgette, yesterday was probably the worst I've seen it up here. It was absolutely nasty with very unhealthy air quality. We could barely see. Visibility was down less than a mile. It was more like fog than it was anything else. And anybody, whether you had upper respiratory problems or not, it was not a good day to be outside.
It wasn't awesome. These are things that are doable, right? We can fix, meaning we look for more wind. We look for a shift in the pattern. Certainly, this is a huge deal to those who are much closer, who are in Canada, and this is, their country, their province is on fire. There's certainly lots of questions about this impact on human health, crop health. We can talk about that today and so much more. But yeah, I really feel for those folks up there. They've evacuated towns. They've had farms and entire communities wiped out. Like we were saying yesterday, I really don't see a big change in Mother Nature in terms of helping until mid-month. Mid-month, there does appear to be a couple of decent-sized storms that should be traversing the provinces of Canada where the wildfires are, and hopefully that will take care of not a lot, but at least start to contain it a little bit. So we'll see what happens for containment. Problem is they're terribly dry and they just have a lot of fuel for the fire.
Right.
So that's their biggest downside. Man, there's just so much going on for those poor folks up there.
Yeah, and our forecast looks a little better as we head into the rest of this week. And, summer arrives, or at least a return to summer temperatures as we head into next week. But for the rest of today, we're looking at temperatures right now right around that 70, 72 degree mark. We've got partly cloudy skies. Expecting to hit about 76 today. Winds not bad, but they will become a little bit breezy in the afternoon, about 10 to 20 out of the northwest. Then great sleeping weather tonight, down to 48 with a northwest wind at 5 to 10. And Wednesday, partly cloudy, west-southwest winds 10 to 15, and highs into the mid to upper 70s tomorrow. And then it looks like we'll see some rain showers, at least scattered rain showers coming in Wednesday night into early Thursday. And then Thursday and Friday, partly cloudy, a little cooler, lower 70s. And it looks like a slight chance of an isolated hit or miss shower Thursday, Friday. I think the majority of Saturday looks dry, a little bit warmer, upper 70s. And then showers and thunder showers Saturday night. And then a breezy, cooler day on Sunday with low 70s. Now, again, next week, it does look like that we will hit the mid-80s, if not a little bit warmer. So we've got summer weather coming in next week, but the remainder of this week, we're kind of stuck in the 70s. Not any widespread rain, just a few hit-and-miss showers here and there. I'd say total precip between Wednesday night and Saturday night, maybe a quarter to a half inch, if that. That's pushing it. Many areas might not even pick up a tenth of an inch. So not a lot of rain on the way, but it looks like that should change later next week along with the summer heat.
That'll be nice. I mean, right now our weather is good in the fact that if you're raising a wheat crop, that's great. If you wanted to get into the field soon and finish planting, that's great. If you wanted not like 90-degree temperatures and packing rains when your soybeans are emerging, that's also great. So, I mean, we got to look at the positives, right? It's not the end of the world. We're going to have a good growing season, regardless of how other things look.
Right. And we were talking about crop health, and Steve had our owner had a good question that how does the smoke, or does it, affect the crops at all?
I've been thinking about that, and it's not that I don't want to answer the question, but I want to table it until our guest gets here because I want to go back and forth with Kelsey about what she thinks versus what I might think in my opinion on it too.
Perfect.
I think that'll be good. And the guest who's going to join us, that is Kelsey Pellman. She is with Peterson Farm Seed. So that's where our seed for our Here We Grow project came from. Okay, so we are raising wheat seed from them, and I wanted to visit with Kelsey about some of the things that we can see crop wise right now. She's also in charge of their soybean production over there. So I thought that'd be a good discussion.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll hold that. And if you have any questions for us or our guest, feel free to call us 701-293-9000, 701-293-9000. There's going to be some sexy guy answering the phone. Just call him Addison. He likes that.
Good news. He already answered the phone for us, and we've got a guy. So Ken called us on the JLA Insurance phone line.
All right. And Ken, welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. What's your question?
Thanks. Well, I got a couple of questions. One of them you'll talk about later, the way it sounds, but I know from the smoke last year, my garden did not produce as well as I expected it to, and I'm assuming they didn't have enough sunshine hours.
So I'm going to ask which garden plants in particular, Ken?
Well, it was tomatoes and peppers, especially peppers. I'm not sure. It was, I rotate in the garden, but my peppers did not do well at all. I mean, I got some, but not like they should have.
Okay, so I'm kind of in the same boat with you last year, and I don't know if it was necessarily the smoke or what we saw, because, Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't you said that last summer wasn't exactly overly hot?
It wasn't, no. And now, Ken, the question is, what about the summer before in 23? Because 23, we had smoke that was worse than last year. Do you remember what 23 was like for you?
I do. I moved down here 8 years ago from International Falls, and we used to have to deal with a lot of this stuff, not only from that, but also from a Oxford plant that liked to blow some nasty stuff at us. But we were up close to a lot of that. But it just seemed like last year was worse for some reason than the year before. It's just perception, I'm sure. The second question I had was, when I raised alfalfa up north, I just looked at how far along the plant was before I cut it. But I know there was a lot of studies where they do work on sunshine hours, I guess you'd call it.
Yep, like growing degree days. Yep.
Yeah, like the boys are cutting alfalfa this last week. So now how, even though maybe it's a foot and maybe it'll be a foot and a half, they go by so many growing hours, but wondering if there was some place that a guy could find that in, I guess.
Sure.
I don't know what.
If you're looking for like where we are for growing degree days and we can find it by location, one of those places we can find it is through NDSU's websites, because they also collaborate with the University of Minnesota. So we can check there. I believe it's on the NDON site through the weather stations. So you can be looking at what those growing degree day maps do contain. I do want to go back to what you said about tomatoes and peppers last year. And I'll be honest, I didn't have a great year for peppers either. And I don't know what I want to put the blame to, but I felt like overall it just wasn't that kind of a year. And I tell you this, because it tended to be drier, the peppers that I did get were hotter. The jalapenos I had I swear to God, when it's dry out, my jalapenos get hotter. And so I don't know exactly what it is, but the good news that we're going to have Don Kinsler coming on here in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that's what Addison was saying. That's a great question for Don.
Yeah, I want to make sure to ask him that. Yes.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Perfect. Hey, Ken, thank you so much.
Really like the conversation,
you're
Ken.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
All righty. So we're coming up on break right now. So
before I came to the studio today, Addison's got some pictures he's going to run in our live stream. So again, you can be watching us on Facebook and YouTube today, as well as Acres TV. And I have some photos of our field. This is our Here We Grow field. And I was out there on Saturday. Our signs are up. So for those of you who want to know where our field is, if you are familiar with Cass County Road 11, which goes north of Mapleton, it's a paved road, then it turns into gravel. You can follow County Road 11 north until you see our field. Our signs are there talking about our sponsors that are part of our project. And then additionally, there is a sign that has a QR code on it. And if you follow the QR code, you can guess what you think our bushels are going to be. So we'd love to have you send us your guesses for your bushels. You can use the QR code, give your name and your bushel count, because we're going to give away one of Dean's really great rain gauges and a $100 gas gift card.
Hey, there you go.
Because you took the time to drive out, find our field. Anytime that you find a field, I would love to have you guys send me pictures of it. You can do that in my inbox, ag@flagfamily.com. Dean's is weather@flagfamily.com. And you can find us on our Facebook page as well for Weather and Ag in Focus. And as those sponsors roll in as part of our Here We Grow project, two of them would include Codeco fuels and propane, because it's not just about diesel fuel, gasoline, propane, but it's also about bulk oils and the things that they can do for your farm, delivery in quite a radius of this area, and then also Ellingson companies. And for Ellingson, they're going to talk to you about drainage. In fact, I had a great conversation with a farmer at Oaks this morning talking about water, aquifers, drainage, what he believes as a farmer who's actually on North Dakota Irrigation Council, what he thinks our water quality looks like and our availability. And he's very excited about it. He said he actually thinks that North Dakota's water quality group out in Bismarck is very conservative. So he thinks, really, when they say we can support something, we really can.
Good.
Which is a great thing, right? Water, vital to life. But
yeah.
Those are just a couple of our sponsors. We're going to be joined by yet another one when Kelsey gets here with Peterson Farm Seed. We're going to bring her in. We're going to talk about our wheat. We're going to talk about, I guess I can't say smoke on the water, but smoke on the wheat and what it might do for our crop as well. So
You said smoke on the wheat.
Right.
Okay, I thought you said something else. Never mind.
No, this isn't Cheech and Chong.
Okay.
All right. We will have all those conversations after the market update from American Ag Network. Here we are for Weather and Ag and Focus on this. Well, it's now overcast. I'm not even going to blame the smoke. It just got a little overcast today, Dan, which isn't
bit.
the end of the world.
No.
And, used to always say that if it was cloudy, I didn't have good phone service. Maybe in some cases that's still true up here. Yeah, you didn't live here yet when we talk about that. I still had a bag phone in my pickup at the time. And we always would say, we didn't get good signal. Things weren't smooth. Well, if you're worried about things not being smooth in your technology on the farm, that's where you call Chris Sherman with Tech Support Farm. Chris has been doing a fantastic job of helping assess what our farmers need to keep them secure. The more stories I hear about, and this was just a recent phishing scheme, that Grandpa, using his Hotmail account, had been sending stuff back and forth with the bank, but that information got swiped by a nefarious figure who then sent what looked like official documentation from the bank about a land purchase. And Grandpa, thinking it was secure documents, forwarded it to the sons in the partnership and said, okay, everybody sign, let's get this in.
Oh, no.
And the paperwork went in, and all the money was lost, and no land was secured. And so that's why we have guys like Chris Sherman who are looking out for us to try to protect and secure our information. We are coming to you live today from the Midwest Ag Summit studio. Looking forward to that next week. That is on Tuesday morning up at the Red River Valley Fairgrounds. And it's going to be a big day, a lot of discussion on policy, economics, transportation, global trade, and so much more. If you have not yet registered, you can do that at the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce website to be a part of the Midwest Ag Summit. Our guest is here, Kelsey Pellman. Kelsey is with Peterson Farm Seed, which is where our seed is from for our wheat field today. Kelsey, all right, we got lots of questions for you. You ready?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to make you pull that mic really tight. Okay, so exciting question of the day. And Dean, we got this from our caller. You want to kick this off for us?
Yeah, so we had some questions that one of our viewers sent in, or listeners, sorry, that with all the smoke that we've had, how does that affect, or does it affect the crops at all, whether it be the smoke or the limited sunshine from the smoke? I know we have to deal with heating degree days and growing degree day units, but does the smoke itself, does anything regarding that Canadian smoke coming down here affect our crops at all?
So it is going to a little bit. And I think I heard the tail end of that. I think he was specifically asking about tomatoes and peppers,
right?
Yep.
Which is not in my wheelhouse. I'm a little more soybean and corn specific.
That's okay. We'll take it to the bigger crop size. That's fine.
Absolutely. So like your sweet corn and stuff, a lot of times when it comes to corn, we talk specifically about temperature as growing degree days. And in some ways, a few years ago specifically, I don't think it was last year, we actually talked about, we think the smoke helped us because it kept us cooler. It kept us from getting too hot. Because when you start pushing above that 80-degree mark, corn will actually slow down. It won't grow as fast. So it's actually detrimental because it's getting too hot. The plant is saying, I can't do this. I got to shut down. Kind of like us. I mean, I don't like working outside when it's 95
you have no idea
degrees.
how much I don't want to sweat. No,
Exactly. The corn is the same way.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it does help us in the heat of the summer, in the peak of the summer. But there is, with extended smoke, with less sunlight, we probably are going to see a little bit of an impact. But with most of our field crops, it's not huge.
Okay. When we talk about that smoke, and this is maybe more of a question for Dean, and you talked about it sort of filters out some of that direct sunlight, makes it a little bit cooler, which isn't all bad. We're not looking at heat stress on our crop. Will that smoke almost act as a cover at night to hold the heat? Because even though temperatures cool off, if they stay above 70 degrees at night, corn keeps growing, or 80.
Oh gosh, now I can't remember. I believe it's above 50. I think we start counting at 50 and we stop at about like 82.
Yeah, we keep growing through the night. Would that help us, Dean?
You know, I would say if it was lower level smoke, yes, that will affect a little bit of that radiational heat escaping at night. Now, if it's the upper level smoke, it's really not going to make that big of a difference.
Okay. Well, I was on the phone as I pulled into the parking lot today with a agronomist out of Illinois, and he said, man, we thought it was terrible in Illinois, worried about our corn. And then I got here and I got nothing to complain about. And that's funny because in Illinois, that is where you can mess with the guy's wife. Don't touch his corn crop. And he was way more worried about their smoke. No. Welcome to our neighborhood. So be a lot of things for us to look at. Okay, Kelsey, we jumped right into that. Tell us a little bit more about your role at Peterson Farm Seed, please.
So I've been with Peterson, oh gosh, we must be about 3 years now. I've been super lucky. I got to work with them in college, and they hired me on straight out of college as an agronomist. I worked as a regional agronomist covering a lot of our sales areas through North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota. Over the last year or so, I've been transitioning into more of a soybean specific role. So I'm the soybean production manager. So I'm picking our lineup. I'm picking the products we're going to sell. I'm working with our growers. I'm working with our dealers. I'm working with our salespeople to help identify what kind of needs they have, what kind of problems they have in the field, and what kind of products can I select to help them solve those problems. And with that, I am then also in charge of production. So already in 2025, I'm thinking about what we need for 2026.
At least, if not
Oh, yeah.
27.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So sometimes when I start talking, my dad's a farmer, my husband's a farmer. When I start talking with them about bean varieties, sometimes I have to think, okay, what year am I in when we start talking about these lines?
Okay, so not only when you're looking at soybeans a lot, right? That's primary function, but you also have wheat that falls under your shed, so to speak. When did wheat get added to the lineup from Peterson Farm Seed?
So wheat was actually how Peterson got started. I think Scott was on a little while ago he talked about that.
Which, okay, so to back up, Scott, not Peterson,
Scott Sanders.
Thank you, Scott Sanders, who is your CEO. And Scott has recently been elected the president of the Independent Seed Growers Association. So yes, that's Scott.
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Okay.
So then with corn and soybeans being added, wheat kind of fell by the wayside. And it's probably been, oh gosh, I want to say the last 5 years or so that we've kind of been delving back into wheat. It all started out with buns. If you ever have Carl on, you'll have to ask him about the naming conventions and how we got into buns. We love talking about it. Everybody talks about our buns.
I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Where's the cowbell?
Yeah, I should have brought the bell today. Well, it gets better because they named him even better things after buns.
Oh, yeah. And now we've got rolls and muffins. So we have some fun with it. We have lots of fun.
You just need Durham so you can finally have some pasta like the Canadians say, right?
Exactly. Maybe we can get some ravioli or, I don't know, rigatoni.
Oh, man. Okay, we're going to want to talk about the differences of those. We're going to talk about our field, and we're doing something different because we have commercial seed this year, not just we're harvesting, hauling it to the elevator. And we want to answer all those questions when we return after our news at the bottom of the hour. And when we do, again, we're joined by Kelsey Pellman. She is joining us from Peterson Farm Seed. Be right back. I always say that the month of June is so tremendously busy. First of all, we got a crop in the ground. We're trying to spray it. We're trying to keep it alive. Thank you, Mother Nature. Don't wreck this for us. And then there's all of the conferences and things that are going on. And Addison's going to roll some photos for me. I stopped by the shack at NDSU today and saw two of my very favorite things together. And that was North Dakota State University and North Dakota FFA. The convention is being held at the shack. It was great fun to be up there. What Addison's got some photos of, and you can just run those randomly for us. I walked through the students' projects that are for their agri-science fair. So the first one he's got is a comparative analysis of airfoil profiles on horizontal axis wind turbine energy production. I have no idea what they talked about after that, but that was a hell of a title. Okay, then we have heart rate on horses influenced by different genres of music. The next one was the impact of drinking fluids on oral microbiome. I mean, these guys got into a lot of things. There's a smart harvester, then the rate at which different cheeses will mold, and the impact of Bacillus subtilis on nutrient bioavailability and plant growth in aquaponic systems. I'm going to need the short class versions on those, but the convention hall looks great. I had an opportunity to see what how their setup is as they've moved out of the Benson Bunker Fieldhouse, and they are hosting their largest convention ever. There are 1,800 students in town, so you can watch for the blue wave as they move across the city.
Nice.
All right, that's part of what's going on this week, but there's a big announcement.
There's a bigger thing going on this week, at least for some, and it's going to be this Thursday. You'll want to be tuning in at 4:20 this Thursday, 4:20. That's in the afternoon, as we're about to make an announcement that could change your life and your families as well. We're talking cart shaking, freezer filling, pantry packing news. That kind of gives a hint, doesn't it? Just a little.
Maybe.
You'll never look at the grocery list the same way again. We can't say much more, at least not yet. Make sure you're listening Thursday at 4:20 on the Jay Thomas Show, and he will let you know exactly what we're talking about.
In no uncertain terms from Jay.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. With Jay, you never know, but yeah, this is a pretty big announcement. And no, Jay's not going anywhere or anything like that. But
no,
this is a contest that we'll be having, and boy, that's all I can say.
It'll be exciting.
Yeah, no doubt.
Also exciting today is our guest in studio, and that's Kelsey Pellman. She's with Peterson Farm Seed. Okay, so more things that we want to talk about in regards to our wheat. You described the fact that we have rolls, which is our wheat in the field, which I think is just the best genius name, because now I want a caramel roll. Have you had a chance to drive up to the field? It's not terribly far from your Prosper office, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm actually based out of further towards right in the middle of the state of North Dakota. So I don't get out here quite as often as I used to. So I haven't been up there yet, but it's on my list. I'll probably hit it on the way home.
Sweet. Well, give me your professional opinion when you get there. I can tell you that is a heavy Fargo clay ground. Things have dried out nicely. When I was there on Saturday, our wheat is probably a 3 to 4 leaf. No, I bet we're over 4 leaf stage now. And we should have been getting fungicide application, et cetera, this week. But it's really clean. There's not a lot of problems with weed control right now. Fingers crossed we stay that way.
Good to hear.
Now, one of the things that we're doing with our 20 acres of wheat this year is a little bit different. Normally, what we've done in the past, where we were using corn or soybeans, harvest, haul them into the elevator, and then sell at market price. But that's not the case this year where we're raising commercial seed. Can you describe to us what that means with our grower, Jim Ulen, having gone ahead and created this project with him where we're using commercial seed and going back as commercial seed?
Absolutely. So when we're talking about commercial production, it's a little bit different than like a conventional farm production to haul into the elevator. While there's still quality standards you want to hit and things you're taking care of, like your fungicide and things like that, to keep certain numbers low, specifically with different diseases. When it comes to commercial seed production, for me, when I'm looking for a production grower, I'm looking for somebody that's going to go the extra mile, because there's a few other things they have to do, because we want to make sure we're maintaining quality. Because when we have commercial seed production, that means we're coming back, we're bringing it back to our site, we're cleaning it, we're processing it. Scott talked about maintaining quality. That's a super big thing for us. And then we're selling that to farmers down the line. So what Jim has to do as a production grower is before he gets to that field, He has to take his equipment. He has to clean it out really, really well.
So when you say equipment, we're starting everywhere from the truck that hauls the seed
Yep.
all the way to he's got to clean out his planter
Yep.
and his combine
Yep.
completely separately because we don't want any cross contamination.
Exactly. Because as commercial production, we want to make sure as much of that field as possible is exactly the same. It's the exact same genetics. It's the exact same line. So that's why he has to do a super thorough job to remove any contamination. And then making sure the field is clean of weeds, like you were talking, making sure there's no volunteer crops coming from the year before, maintaining that high quality production throughout the year. And then, like you said, coming back in the fall, making sure the combines are really clean, making sure there's no cross contamination of other wheat varieties. Same thing with the trucks, the augers, the conveyors, anything he does, he's going the extra mile to make sure that we maintain purity and to make sure that we maintain quality.
So if we're maintaining that type of genetic integrity, if you will, we oftentimes call it something like identity preservation, right? Because we're keeping that very clean. What's the risk reward? Like versus is there a way to describe it? And I don't need specific numbers by any means as to, how much are we paying for this operation? But when it comes to what you see on a cash price on the board for wheat versus what someone can get for commercial seed production, how big of a gap could that be?
I mean, it depends from company to company, but most of us end up about the same amount, where they are going to get a premium on top of that commercial price.
Okay.
And so a lot of times that adds a little extra stability. It adds some extra, I'm going to use the word motivation to do a good job.
Motivation's a good word.
Yep. And it's a good way for us to thank our really loyal customers, our loyal producers, just to say, hey, we want to give you this opportunity to get some extra money on the farm, get some extra money across these acres and on these bushels, just as a way for us to thank you.
So as Peterson, do you frequently look at the field? Does someone within your organization to almost certify it that it's still clean, meeting your production standards, that type of thing?
Yep. So there'll be a couple of times throughout the year. Not so much right now, because right now most of the wheat looks like wheat. It pretty much all looks the same.
It looks like a grassy crop in the field.
Yep. But when it gets closer to the fall, that's something that I'll handle with our team, with our sales team and our agronomy team. We'll get lists out and we'll break down all these fields and say, okay, this is what we got to look for. You're looking for things that look a little funky, whether you have plants that are way taller or they're maturing at a different time. That's what we call an off type.
Sure.
So we're trying to catch things like that. And we have a certain tolerance with off types, because eventually as seed is produced, little things are going to get mixed in. But we trust our production growers to eliminate as much of that as possible. Sure. But we use that fall, we call it a pre-harvest inspection. We use that opportunity to make sure everything's above board, to make sure everything looks right, and make sure there's nothing goofy that we need to avoid with the combines.
You talked about conveyors, augers, etc., because that indicates it's not as though we're going to harvest this field and haul it right to Peterson's facility, which Jim is close enough that could happen. But the reality is most farmers probably have to store this for you for a time. And what does that time frame look like that they would have to store until you're ready to bring it in for cleaning, bagging it for next year?
Depends on the crop and depends on maturity.
Okay.
Our plant guys, they build out a schedule. They say, okay, this is what we're going to plan with. So some of it starts coming in right at harvest, and then some of it might be coming in right before spring's work, depending on when what the maturity is, or if we're running out of a certain product and they need to bring in more. They'll call the farm and say, hey, you still got it? We're going to come get it. So it depends on the maturity and depends on the crop, but some of it will come in straight at harvest and some of it will come in throughout the winter.
So what if it fails? What happens if we're all of a sudden something bad happened, whether a wrong herbicide got sprayed, the weather turned on us, it hailed, we suddenly are down 15, 20 bushel on the field?
That becomes a Kelsey starts panicking problem. No, that's something
I'd like to see that look. Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't see that this year, but that's something that we kind of roll with the punches. We try and spread out our production. So we'll have a little bit here, a little bit there, maybe split it up by a couple of counties as best we can. But it's something that we roll with. We try to have a little extra production. And then some of our producers that know us and that have worked with us before, sometimes they'll say, hey, I've got a little extra over here. So if something happens, we've got some on the wayside.
Oh, sure. So someone might be producing more wheat than the acres you have contracted with them.
Yep.
But they're still leaving it at that higher quality level.
Exactly.
Do you have a list? So in having worked in the past with, say, barley producers at Molson Coors, where Coors handed out a list that if you were going to raise barley for them, these are the products you can use, right? From fertilization all the way through what you might be doing for a heading fungicide, right? Is there something like that Peterson follows with their growers as well?
Again, depends on the crop and depends on, like for soybeans, it depends on the trait platform. But the biggest thing is like in the fall, if we need to do what's called a burn down, which is just a chemical application to make sure everything's uniform. We don't want to use Roundup in those situations because specifically Roundup, and there's a couple other ones, they can affect our germination.
Right, glyphosate.
Yep, exactly.
Glyphosate is its active ingredient.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But other than that, for the most part, we leave the discretion up to the grower. We really like to see a fungicide, and they understand that because that's very important for quality. We don't want to carry some of those seed-borne diseases. But otherwise, we pretty much leave it up to grower discretion with wheat.
What do you have any concerns about protein? Normally we talk about a certain time of the summer where we like to see some heat stress on the wheat in order to build protein. Do you want higher protein when you have a seed production field like this, or does it not matter?
That doesn't matter so much.
Okay.
Protein more matters when you haul it into the elevator because they might be looking for certain protein levels to blend things off when that wheat is going to the final use product. But for us, it's more about quality and germination. That's what we care about.
Okay. Which so far I think our wheat is great quality. Not that I want to try to get a bigger bonus for anybody here, but I will try.
I'll make sure I make a note. I'll make a note.
And do you think it's ahead of schedule in terms of our wheat?
I think we're right on. We were planted on May 8th,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we're in really good shape right now. Wheat likes our growing season. There's a reason why Bonanza Farms established here, because we have the right temperate climate for what we're looking for. It was a little panic situation when it was first emerged out of the ground and we were hitting 91 degrees for 3 days, and you saw I did see some heat canker on some plants. It wasn't terrible, but you go lay out in black soils in bright sunlight for 8 hours a day and see how you feel.
No thanks.
Yeah. And let's not forget the 30-mile-an-hour winds. That was a real bonus right there.
Yeah. Thankfully, wheat is quite resilient.
Yes, it really is. And do you pretty much follow the same process for what you're doing for corn and soybean commercial production as well?
Corn is a little different just because it's hybrid production, so that gets a little bit more complicated.
Sure.
But the soybean production is generally the same. We're working with some of our growers. We're making sure that the quality is high, that they maintain these high standards. But the soybeans get a little bit more spread out based on maturity. So we've got soybean production way up north. We've got a little bit in South Dakota. We've got some way out west. It kind of depends on where you're at. But, yep, generally the same.
Okay. Well, Peterson Farm Seed has been a part of our project previously when we were raising soybeans. And we are very thankful that you are this year as we follow along with wheat. I anticipate doing one of our videos where I honestly just sit in the field and eat a sandwich. So you want to know where your wheat went? Right there.
Right in the sandwich.
Although considering we are raising a product called Rolls as its name, might be a caramel roll. And not on a windy day. I don't need grits stuck to my caramel. So, Kelsey, where can people reach out to Peterson Farm Seed if they would like to ask further questions, to know more about your wheat, that type of thing?
Yeah, you can find our contact information on petersonfarmseed.com. The whole ag team's got our contact information on there, and then there's also a phone number available.
Excellent. We will have folks do that. All right. There's more to come. We still have more weather to wrap up, etc. And we haven't even hardly talked about further headlines. I know I have some things over here. Short stature corn, which maybe Kelsey wants to stay for that headline. You never know.
That's a fun one. That's one we've been keeping an eye on.
Okay. We might have her stay. All right. We'll be back.
And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. It's 72 degrees out there with a northwest wind blowing between about 10 and 15 miles an hour. And we're looking at temperatures ticking up a few more degrees, about 76 today, and slight breeze out of the northwest, 10 to 20. Tonight, great sleeping weather. Open up the windows. You don't have to worry about smoke pouring in. Should be a decent night with lows in the upper 40s. And then 79 tomorrow. Chance for showers as we head late in the day into the overnight hours. And then a little cooler Thursday, Friday, low 70s with a slight chance of an isolated pop-up shower in the afternoon and evening. The weekend looks nice on Saturday, 79. A cold front approaches, and that could trigger off some storms Saturday night, leading to a breezy, cooler Sunday. Summer heat does return next week. I see from Tuesday onward, mid-80s. And this weather is brought to you by Progressive Ag Risk Management Specialists. Now, we were talking off-air about short stature corn, named after me and Bridgette.
Not just a tiny corn maze.
Yeah. So what is short stature corn?
Go ahead, Kelsey, give this a whirl.
It's all in the name. It's corn that we're trying to bring down the height.
And for what reason? Why would that be necessary?
For a lot of our area, I think about it as green snap risk. The taller your corn, the more leverage that wind has to snap your corn over. If we can bring that height down, maybe that'll help. The other thing is we get into no-till country, maybe it's residue management. Because if we're not tilling our ground, not burying that residue, we got to try and figure out how to get through it the next spring to plant our crop.
Yeah.
So if we have shorter corn with less residue, maybe that helps with some of that residue management.
And additionally, potentially water conservation.
Right.
There's that word. Yeah, because the thought is that it uses less corn because it's packing on less plant material.
Makes sense.
But one of the big traits that has to make sure it stays the same is cob height.
Mm-hmm.
Because you still have to have the cob at a certain height for your combine headers.
That was a fun one. Last summer, we were in a field where we were talking about short stature corn, and they had some there. And I knew immediately the guy was a farmer because he looks at the guy and says, well, what happens if it snows?
Right.
And
Because
our cob is 2 feet off the ground.
Yep.
How do we get that?
Right.
So that's one of the challenges.
And we have had those years where we have had to combine in snow. And nobody loves that.
Yeah.
No, it's really not pleasant.
Now, when you say shorter stature, are you talking 6 feet, or are you talking? I mean, what height is considered short stature?
I think it depends on where you're starting.
Okay.
I mean, you get in certain regions. I mean, corn, it's normal for it to be 12 feet tall.
Easily. Yeah.
Not so much out here, but
Yeah, we're a little shorter.
if we can cut, even some of these companies are talking about a third. That's all it would take. If we can bring a third of that plant height down, that's less water that we need, less residue. That starts to solve some of these problems.
And yields are the same.
Yep, in theory.
And right?
And you were asking about, does it change our cost any?
Yeah.
And so some of the news that I have in relation to that, they're talking about a higher seeding rate. So they're looking at 48,000 seeds per acre as a population versus what we might normally see. And the other recommendation was potentially a narrow row, like a 15-inch. Here, we're probably more like 22s up to 30s. But if you look at a 15-inch row and you look at that higher density population, what you're trying to do is crowd out the weeds. Corn's a weenie. When it first starts, it just sucks at crop competition. It's like, oh, look at me, and I'm done. So really, you want to make sure that corn does take off as best possible and shade out other potential competition. And you can do that in a narrower row with a higher population as well. So yeah, it's an interesting concept. I don't know that we have anybody at full commercialization for it. And especially you talked about breeding, Kelsey. There's a couple different ways. We can do it traditionally, or we can do it through gene editing to try to move that process along faster.
Exactly. Yep. And everybody I've heard about is doing it a little bit differently.
They are. Yep. So I think we'll see this coming along sooner rather than later, especially as we see some of those southern areas of the U.S. hitting much higher drought concerns. They're probably going to want to look at it as well.
That's great. And how long has this been in the making?
I've been looking at short stature corn since probably end of 21 to 22.
Okay.
For sure. And that was before, I wasn't in a corn breeder situation. So I was way out on the end of that operation. Yeah. You've likely been seeing it the same.
I'd say about the same. That'd be about the time that I was getting into the whole, into all the breeding, all that stuff. But yeah, it's something that's probably been a long time coming. And I think a lot of the people in the public don't understand how long it takes this stuff to get to market. They've probably been working on it for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
It really does. Again, thank you for coming in today to the Midwest Ag Summit studio. We appreciate that.
It's been
Thank
fun.
you, Kelsey. All right, that'll do it for us today on Weather and Ag in Focus. And for Bridgette and myself, I want to say thanks for tuning in, but don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show, it's coming up next.